Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shannon Q. I am Shannon Q. It looks to be that I am starting a stream with sound, so I am already the best version of myself. Thank you for being here today. I am very, very excited about this conversation. I think it's a very nuanced conversation that isn't often had well, and I met somebody that I think can give us a lot of insight into this conversation because he himself is an educator and someone who, through my experience and exposure to him, is somebody who understands the nuance and is capable of having this conversation without vitriol and with a lot of insight. So I can't wait to have a conversation with Forrest Valkai. So I'm going to unmute him. Let's see if I can start him with sound. And hi, Forrest. Everybody can
Hi,
see
Shannon.
now. Yay!
How are you?
I am very excited that you're here. That's how I am right now. I'm pumped. I am so excited. Thank you so much for being here with me to have this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, before we get started on the conversation about how indoctrination can affect education, I would love it for you to tell everybody who you are and where they can find you, please.
Yeah, sure. So, hi, my name is Forrest Valkai. On most platforms, I go by Renegade Science Teacher, which the story of how that came about is pertinent to this conversation. So we'll dig into that in a minute.
Awesome.
I'm on the TikToks and the YouTubes and the Instagrams. And sometimes I remember that I have a Twitter as well. And you can just find me either by searching for my name or Renegade Science Teacher. I'm a biologist and a bioanthropologist. I specialize in studying evolution. My background is in integrative biology, so I studied all sorts of different fields and brought them all together to understand the evolutionary history of things. And I teach people to love science and themselves. That's my whole jam. And I'm happy that you're a part of it.
Yeah, you're so enthusiastic that it's just contagious. You make me want to learn about subjects that I had been exposed to or thought that I would be interested in. I love your general demeanor and your delivery. I think it's great.
Well, thank you.
Your whole vibe. I love your whole vibe, as the TikToks
that means
say.
the world to me. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So, because you have a background in science and education in general, I thought you'd be such a perfect person and we were on Captain Dadpool's Nerds and Heresy stream, and you and I just kind of just geeked out for a significant amount of time talking about brains and stuff, and I just loved engaging with you, and so I started consuming more of your content, and I immediately realized that you were the perfect person to have this conversation with because it is such a nuanced conversation and it's not often had well. People seem to err on this side of anybody who is religious just, is silly and foolish, or that, everybody, science is silly and foolish. And there's not a lot of people in the middle ground having the nuanced version of the conversation. And what the real impacts are, where they are and where they aren't. So I thought that you would be so great to have this dialogue with. So thank you for having it with me because it's...
I hope I can live up to the hype.
I'm setting the bar high for you, Forrest. I'm setting the bar high. You'll live up to it. I'm sure you will. So I'll start with a question for you. As somebody who is an educator, have you found that there are impacts related to indoctrination or religion in general when it comes to being an educator? And if so, what are they kind of on a high level?
Very yes. And basically, so I'm what's called an informal educator. So rather than having one set classroom where I have one set group of kids and one set lesson plan, and I, forever, for the past almost decade or so, schools and summer camps and colleges and libraries and universities and whoever else have hired me to come do classes and workshops and assemblies to get people excited about science. So that's been my job. And now I'm a science communicator on the Interbot. And so by doing this, I've been exposed to, millions of students. I've been to hundreds and hundreds of schools across the state of Oklahoma. And the biggest hang up that I get a lot of the times is the fact that certain topics in science are controversial here in Oklahoma because no matter where you live in Oklahoma, there are double-digit churches within walking distance of the school. And so I've been reprimanded innumerable times for teaching evolution, for teaching the age of the earth, for teaching about, at one time, I worked at a science museum and we did a whole thing about snow and we calculated how many snowflakes probably fell on the earth over the 4.6 billion years the earth's been around. And that was a huge problem because we said the earth was 4.6 billion years old. We did one where I talked about where human skin color comes from, and that involves talking about evolution and talking about race. And this is a big problem. So that's actually, I said at the beginning, would be pertinent. That's why I came up with the idea of renegade science teacher, was I wanted to teach what actually mattered to me and to students and in science in general without fear of reprisal from religious bigots. And so by branching off and doing it this way, I've encountered much more controversy and pushback, but I also have helped people understand how this stuff actually works. And I can see that it's an issue of indoctrination, as you're saying.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear certain words come out of students' mouth, like for example, one time I was doing a little after school program for some elementary school kids in Tulsa, and I said the word evolution or something like that, and this kid said that's what we're supposed to believe, that we come from chimps, was the way he said it. And okay, every single word in that sentence is a red flag. Supposed to, believe, and came from chimps tells me everything about where you got this mindset about it. You know what I mean? This is not coming from you. Or if I have a student tell me that evolution is a farce, I haven't heard the word farce since I was, in a theater class in 8th grade. Nobody uses that word for anything. If a 6th grader is throwing the word farce around, you didn't get that from yourself. Somebody told you to say it that way. So yeah, I see a lot of that, unfortunately. And it sucks because this is the coolest kind of science. It's the unifying theme of biology. It's the thing that makes everything else make sense. And if you set a barrier to that, you are shutting down the conversation and not allowing the child to actually go learn the rest of the science because, that might be the scary kind of science. That might be the kind of science that I'm not allowed to know.
It might be the unravel your belief kind of science.
And that's the best kind of science. Science is supposed to make you question the reality that you weren't sure you wanted to be a part of in the first place. That's what science is all about. And if you can't do that, you're missing out so hard.
I know. How do you this is where I struggle because I see it too. Not just, I'm not an educator in any stretch of the imagination. I mean, not even kind of almost an educator. That's not in my wheelhouse. But doing this and also having a child and just in general interactions since I became kind of, I guess, an activist or an advocate for I mostly advocate for education around neuroscience because I felt very, very frustrated with the way neuroscience was being represented in both atheistic counter-apologetics and also apologetics, religious apologetics. Everybody goes to extremes to misrepresent it on both sides to overstate their case. And I felt as though that was a sign that maybe people didn't have that core, right?
Yeah.
And some people have what my friend Ocean calls this sort of latent Christianity or this latent sort of vestige of indoctrination where they get a hold of a concept. And once they get a hold of a concept and they have that heuristic, fighting against that heuristic becomes incredibly difficult. Any sort of dissonance is met with just either a shutdown or a diversion, a mental diversion. So how to combat against that is, that's what I struggle with. That's where I'm trying to figure it out. And maybe it's case by case. Maybe every person is different. Maybe it's not it's clearly nuanced and there's not a one size fits all answer. Have you found any strategies that are effective as somebody who's an educator and a communicator?
It sucks because it really is. Education is an art. It's a dance. And there's nothing that you can say, I'm going to do this and then someone's going to learn a thing. But there are strategies that are very much case by case, but that can help get through to people. The number one, and I think you tackled this immediately when you said, seeing religious indoctrination as, this person's just stupid or this person's just foolish or whatever, coming into it, that mindset. There is, it's the closest thing to magic there is. If you walk into a classroom or address a student or try to put on a lesson or something, if you expect there to be a problem, if you expect them to not get it, if you expect it to be too hard, it is. That's going to happen no matter what. And so if you go into the conversation saying, oh, this freaking idiot is just going to try to tell me about this God thing and I'm going to have to work around it, you're going to have a bad time no matter what. So having an honest conversation with them, giving them like the best evidences that you can, trying to redirect and show them how to think the right way rather than just shutting down and saying, no, don't do that. Or that's dumb. Don't think that way, whatever else. Hearing them out, treating them like adults. Like there's so many things that matter and that can really, really help in these situations. But you also always have to remember that if somebody tells you, you are not going to change my mind, I'm not going to believe you about this, you need to take their word for it, because you're going to spend the next 8 hours trying to convince this one person who's already told you it's not going to happen. You are going to waste your time. You're going to get burned out. And then everybody else watching is going to see your frustration and take that as incompetence, ignorance, anger, frustration with them, even though they're not part of the conversation. They're now feeling disconnected. It's just not going to work out. And sometimes you have to recognize that and understand the fact that no matter what I do, I can't pull this kid any closer. I cannot bring this person to my side. But if I push them away a little bit more, that will pull the other kids closer and say, okay, here's why that's very wrong. And here's why that's a terrible idea. So it really is tough, because when you're in a classroom with children, you want to be as nice as possible. When you're trying to educate adults, the tactics change a lot. Yeah. I've experienced with both. So it's a very different thing.
I feel like the adults would be hard. No, my God, no, that's all informative. So I feel like adults would be harder though, because they're so entrenched in their belief systems. And I think just intrinsically kind of less open to a change in that belief, because they've molded aspects of their lives, like social life, work life, family life, like through the lens of that belief system. Like that their heels are a bit more dug in, because if they change that belief system, it means very tangible, real life things unravel for them. And so, I mean, I've never been an educator of children aside from being a parent and educating, my son. But I've always said
that's huge.
That is huge. I've always said that I teach him how to think, not what to think, though. Like, it's very important to me that whatever decision he comes to is his decision. But what I'm arming him with is tools. And I say, as a parent, the most important thing that I'll ever do is teach him how not to need me. Like, how to be able to, function and navigate the world as though I'm not in it is it's counterintuitive, but it's the most important thing that I'll ever have to do. But you can't do that with an adult. Like, it's so emotionally entrenched.
Yeah, well, the idea is similar. Like, you're trying to work yourself into obsolescence. You're trying to get them past you, and that's fine. But like the difference, I would say, is that with it's very similar now I think about it. If you're working with kids, and especially if you're a parent, right, and you want to teach the kid, like you said, how to think, not what to think. Kid asks you a question, you know the answer off the top of your head. Rather than just give it to them, well, let's go find out together. And show them, okay, so we're going to Google it. And we find, all right, so this says this thing, but see where that source is coming from and see how it doesn't really have anything. Probably not. So let's check a little bit further. Here's this other thing. And see, this is from NCBI. So like, we can trust that, right? Let's figure out, this word's kind of weird. Let's look up that word. And you just kind of teach them how to fact check themselves and how to look things up themselves. You fuel them with their own curiosity, and you show them how to become learners themselves. That's huge. Doesn't really work with an adult, but it's similar in that if you do, like I said, education's a dance, it's an art. If you know how to present the information in a way that's compelling and fueled by that same curiosity, you're not going to do this whole let's go to Google together thing, but you're going to guide their mind to the conclusion in the way that actually sticks to it. If somebody's talking to me about evolution and I say, well, yeah, that's what mutations are all about. Mutations are guiding this thing. Mutations make this work. 9 times out of 10, someone who denies evolution is going to say mutations are random. They're random chance, and random chance can't build an airplane. And if a tornado
they're detrimental,
it doesn't make a card, and
you're losing information.
Random chances always hurt things, and exactly, you know exactly what I'm
talking about.
Yes.
I've been around.
That's not going to work. So that's not going to work. But if I come into it talking about, adaptive strengths and talk about like, so this animal does this thing because it has to, like, talk about gene frequency changing or allele frequency changing, things like this. If I approach it from the back way and then come in and say, hey, notice also everything that I just said involves mutation, and that's the only way that it would work. Well, that kind of makes sense. So, but I thought mutations, well, let's define what mutations are. And now the door is a little bit more open rather than just me saying you're wrong about mutations. You don't fucking know what a mutation is. Let's talk about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's I don't know. You have to be a sneaky snake to make it work. Yeah. Sneaky Springbok.
Sneaky Springbok. I like that.
I don't know.
So one thing I do want to touch on, because I think this is the important reason that we have conversations like this. Like, tactics are really important to talk about for anybody who's actually engaging like on the forefront of this. But not everybody is engaging on the forefront of this. I wish more people would, because, and this is why I think it's important, there's such dramatic social and societal impact to this type of indoctrination impacting education. And one of the things, and we're seeing the effects of it constantly right now, like in how society is unfolding all around us, especially in an information age. And one of the things that I wish education did better was teach people source methodology and teach people how to apply logic, as opposed to, you know, this sort of rote memorization, authority-based dictation of, you know, facts. And I think the impacts of that unfold dramatically all around us, because in the information age that we're in right now, everybody can affirm something at their fingertips. Like they can, the confirmation bias is rampant. You can find a source that like immediately affirms whatever ridiculous ass thing that you believe.
I guarantee you can find a scientific paper saying the earth is flat if you try.
Oh, I'm sure.
Guarantee it.
Answers in Genesis has a journal.
Yes.
They have a fucking journal. Have you ever read it?
So frustrating. Yes, actually, I have.
So
yeah, because I did, and for Reacteria, I did a couple things about it, and yeah, unfortunately, I have.
The worst day of my life was the day that I found that journal, and it's my boyfriend Paulogia has a channel, and he was doing a video on the you know, the chimp DNA and human DNA aren't actually whatever percentage. In fact, it's just 70% because blah blah blah. So I was like, that's not, like, I've read, that's not true. Like, show me which paper they're using. So he showed me, and I was like, this is nefarious. It's because it's the artifice of intellectual rigor with none of the substance. But people, because they don't have the educational background, and they're already, you know, preloaded with the idea that they can see these ministries as authorities. Yes. Just say, well, they did a study. They have research.
Well, it's you know, this is something that we talked about. I think we talked about on Nerds and Heresy. Is it's this dogmatic thinking. Yeah. When you tell these people, you know, God said so, so quit asking questions. The preacher said so, quit asking questions. You don't when now they're trying to engage with science, it's a scientist said so, so shut up. And if it's a scientist said that evolution is real, well, they're a fucking idiot then. But if it's a scientist said the Earth is 10,000 years, well, they're the best scientist in the world. Clearly, they're, you know. So like this thought of like, well, I saw it in a journal once. It's why we have such an issue now with COVID misinformation. Is that you'll see someone showing an abstract that says like, hey, there might be a risk of myocarditis for a vaccine. And they're like, oh, see, the vaccines are killing people. I was like, that's not what that says. That's not what that type of document is for. That hasn't been tested. Did you read the materials and methods on this paper? What did you think of them? How big was the sample size? And they're like, well, you haven't taken an experimental design class. You don't know how to ask these questions. And that's fine. You wouldn't normally have to, but you've just inserted yourself in here. So like, come on. But like, no, it's frustrating because science illiteracy has real consequences. It has real actual issues in the world today. And it's not just, you know, I've used COVID misinformation as one thing, but that's a very modern example. We've been struggling with, you know, homophobia for a very long time because people, how many times have you heard people say it's the natural order of things that there are males and females and that's all, and the men, like, that's not even fucking close to true. or that, you know, it's unnatural. Animals don't do that shit. Actually, we've observed homosexual behavior in over 1,500 animal species. I don't know if you know that. Well, then that's just what animals do. It's disgusting. But that's the opposite of what you just said. What?
Let me just move this goalpost over here now.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And we have, you know, studies now about, you know, trans people that are changing what we know about, you know, what it is to have a gender in the first place. Evolution is something that's still being discovered, still being studied. What it reminds me of, honestly, is it's on my head because I was just writing about this a little bit ago, is fossils. When like before the idea of evolution was even a thing, the concept of what a fossil is was like huge. It was a monumentally controversial thing because people found these triangular rocks called tungstones. And then in like the 1600s, I want to say, there's this dude named Nicolaus Sterno, or Steno, not Sterno, like the fucking camping equipment, Steno. And he was like, actually, these are teeth, y'all. These are shark teeth. And I don't know where those sharks are anymore, but like, these are clearly shark teeth. And that was the beginning of paleontology. And then you had Georges Buffon, who was like, maybe if this thing is here and now not, maybe life has kind of changed over time. And this was a very controversial idea because we had this great chain of being at the time, this hierarchy of all life and matter. And then you go in where we have like, what's her name? Mary Anning. Was this amazing early paleontologist who went out and found plesiosaurs, and we found mastodons and all these things that very clearly weren't around anymore. And then Cuvier was like, hey guys, maybe they all died. And this was the first time that scientists really proposed the idea of extinction. And that blew everybody's mind because as far as everybody knew, everything popped up on the earth exactly as it is 10,000 years ago and hadn't changed since. So this idea of extinction blew a huge hole in everybody's understanding of the whole universe. And then you had Hutton come in with his uniformitarianism, founding the field of geology. And then you had, what's his name? Will Smith, not the actor, but the geologist. And he came up with the idea that like he showed that rocks in different layers had different stuff in them. It's like, look at these rocks have simpler forms and these rocks have more complex forms. And maybe this and what Buffon was talking about kind of go together. And so anyway, the whole thing is that this was a mind-blowing concept at the time. And now we are having one of those mind-blowing events every fucking 10 years.
Isn't that amazing?
We're learning what sex and gender are about. And rather than telling children the new things, we're shutting it down with like the Don't Say Gay bill in fucking Florida. We're learning amazing stuff about the universe. And rather than teaching the kids about how space-time work and how the universe is old, we have the dumbass bill in Oklahoma about how you, if you offend the child's religion in a classroom, you can sue the teacher for $10,000. What is that? Like we have amazing breakthroughs all the time now that are fundamentally changing what we know about literally everything. And we are passing legislation to make sure that nobody ever learns about it. And like that's just how you kill all education, not just public education. No one's going to go to college if they're going to tell you everything that you know is wrong. So like, I don't know, man.
It's worse than that because it's not just, that was beautiful. I love that, by the way. That was beautiful.
Sorry,
no, don't you dare apologize to me. That's beautiful. But it is worse than that to me because it's not just saying that everything that we know is wrong. It's saying that we can't know more than we do now. Everything that we know now, we have to view through this specific lens. That lens can't change. They represent science as this is what we know now. And anything that says different can't be science because science got us this definitive answer. So if something about science evolves to accumulate more knowledge or change something or like illuminate a different aspect of something that we thought we know, then that means that that's wrong. Or conversely, that means that we couldn't have trusted any of it to begin with because otherwise it would have been right all along. And that's
the one that I get all the time.
So bad. It's so
that's why I
bad.
get all the time. Dude, one time, so one of the first people that I ever like actually started having like a religious debate with, he was an optometrist. So dude is a medical type doctor who uses science for a living to do eye surgery. That's his whole, he's an eye surgeon. And the first thing he said to me was, how can you trust science? It's always changing. And I'm like, dude, I hope you're not doing eye surgery from the fucking 1500s.
Right.
Because like, that's just removing the eye. You know what I mean? Like, like, come on. You want science to change. That's the whole point of it.
You didn't even have the technology to see the rods and cones back then to know what the retina even looked like.
You're telling me you're here fucking removing cataracts and shit?
Yes.
What are you doing, Holmes? So like, there's that. And then, or the other thing that you said, I get told all the time, oh, well, it's simple biology. Like, especially if I talk about
that's an oxymoron, simple biology.
Oh, seriously. When I talk about LGBT people, especially when I talk about trans people, I get it all the time. It's basic biology. You're either XX or XY. It's basic biology.
It is,
and I'm like, you're right. That is basic biology. When you study advanced biology, however, you'll learn how that's not the case and how there's a lot more to it than that. When you're in middle school, that is indeed what they tell you. In the same way that in middle school, I might tell a middle school kid, your DNA controls everything about your body. That's not fucking true, but it's good enough for you at this level to learn the basics and then build your way up. Yeah. And so like a lot of people say that science is elitist and that we're lording over people. No, we just spent the last 10 years learning this crazy shit and we're trying to tell you about it. And you're telling me that I'm wrong because you read something that your brother's dog posted on Facebook. Come on.
Your brother's dog. Yeah, because you're not going to teach, the nuances of epigenetics or, any of the social sciences on like a real finite level to a 10th grader or an 11th grader. But most people don't pursue it past that. So I don't want to say rudimentary knowledge, but like basic knowledge of science is all people really have to go on. And then they conform that to fit within their belief system. Like people talking about trans people infuriates me. When you say that sex and gender are synonymous, like that is just such nonsense to me.
Lose it.
That as a social scientist, that is something that I'm like, you can't be serious right now. Like you can't be serious.
As a biologist, I feel you because that's it. You're right. And that's what I get all the time is that people don't understand that these are different terms. They don't understand that sex and gender and sexual orientation and gender presentation and pronoun usage are all very different things and that none of them are binary. And so they just, because we use them in school as synonymous, you know what I mean? Oh, you're XY, so you're a boy and boys act like this. So, make sure you're not wearing pink or playing with dolls because you're a boy.
But there's the act like this, though. The act like this is
that's the worst part of it.
Don't you get that that's an addendum? Like, the act like this is
seriously
an addendum.
It's the worst part of it. And so, like, these people just don't get that these are very different things. And when you try to present them with that, they fall back on this. It's the same thing like when you try to tell somebody what a theory is. And their whole life, they've used the word theory to describe, oh, I'm pretty sure I know where my missing socks are. I have a theory about it. And so now when you come in and use this term seriously, they don't know how to handle it. And so when you talk about sex and gender from a serious perspective, people don't know how to handle it because their whole lives, boys do this, girls do that. That's it. And it's like, no, it's not for most of human civilizations, not on most of the planet. Is that true? Might be true in your house, but not everywhere else.
If you put repressive constraints, societal constraints on people that because they're scared or you've taught them that they need to be afraid or that they're not okay and you've indoctrinated them into believing that it's detrimental to be themselves, you will see less people presenting as themselves because they're terrified too. That's just reasonable, right? What I think is beautiful about how we're progressing is that we're realizing that gender is this vast, beautiful spectrum that doesn't need to be just this box girl with these roles, this box boy with these roles. And it can manifest itself in all of these wonderful and astounding ways once we allow people the room to become the version of themselves that they deserve to be. And why people want to stomp on that is this problem, is this indoctrination problem where they're taught that it's a negative thing to be anything other than conforming to these preset societal standards that are entirely arbitrary. but they assign these negative values to them, but they can't defend it. So they go all the way back to, well, you have a vagina. Well, and then what? And then what?
First of all, prove it, fuckface.
Yeah, exactly. How do you know? Yeah, I've said that before. How do you know?
Yeah. And I love what you use the term there, that they deserve to be.
Of course.
They live on the spectrum, that they deserve to be whoever they want to be, because that's so important. Because you're absolutely right. It comes down to these people have been taught since a very young age that, there's only boys and boys like girls, and everybody else is wrong, and that's it. And if you do any of these things, you're a pervert, a pedophile, a freak, whatever, and you don't want to be that. You don't want to do those. That's not fucking hard to understand. You tell a kid this is bad. Have you seen those clips of little kids coming home from kindergarten sobbing because they were a bad egg? And it's like, because you gave them this parameters of what it is to be a good person, and they broke it, and they're devastated. So if you spend every fucking day of a kid's life and every Sunday going to a big room full of a bunch of other people who think the same thing, telling them anything. The example I usually give is like, if you tell them the moon's made of cheese, and you tell them every single day that good people believe the moon's made of cheese, and all the bad people who think it's made of rocks, those bad people are going to the great fondue in the sky after they die. And if you don't want to be a bad, evil, terrible person, you gotta know that the moon's made of cheese. They're gonna fucking believe it, and they're gonna grow up to be adults with high level, important jobs, running the country, believing that the moon's made of cheese. Anything that you tell somebody that often from the time they're young is going to stick. And so if you fill them full of these hateful ideologies that, these, men in dresses are walking around here trying to molest kids in a bathroom, like, those kids are going to believe that. And that's all that they're going to bring to the table. That's all that they're going to be able to see when they see somebody who's just trying to be themselves. And then you wonder why fucking suicide rates are so high amongst especially LGBT people. And you hear people talk now, especially one thing that I see a lot is, now that we're becoming more accepting and more open about these things, you see so many people complaining and saying, look, now, it's fashionable to be gay. It's fashionable to be bi. It's fashionable to be trans, and everybody's doing it. No, it's not. These people are finally able to talk about this without you literally curb stomping them. That's the difference. They are now feeling safe enough to say, hi, my name is blank. And this whole time, as you said, we've been putting 8 billion humans into 2 boxes. Why on earth would that not work? I wonder,
It's totally true. It's absolutely true. Like, for example, I can speak from experience. Like, I'm bisexual. I've never got to be that version of myself, because I was raised in a religion that told me that that is not an acceptable way to be. I convinced myself that that was abnormal. There was something weird about me that I needed to either fix or repress. And as a result of that, there's a whole aspect of my life that would have been entirely and dramatically different than it is. How I view and see myself and how I became myself would have been a very different story if I had been born now instead of 1981. It would have been a very, very different version of me. And seeing the freedom that people have now, and it's not good enough yet. It's not even fucking kind of good enough yet. Like, not even almost good enough yet. But people on the opposite side of the spectrum now see these people, period. Like, they were able to repress them enough that they hid themselves, were the version of themselves they didn't want to be, and lived a life in pain because you taught them to hate themselves. And that's what you want for them again. And I could not imagine being that person that wants that wants you to hate yourself because I don't want to understand you. It's easier for me to tell you you should hate yourself than for me to try to understand you. Could you imagine being that person and looking yourself in the eye? I couldn't.
Honestly, like, what gets me is that you're absolutely right. Try to understand you is where it goes. But even at this very early level, just leave somebody the fuck alone.
Right.
It's all required. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, like, and that's it's so frustrating because you always hear, like, there's so many things that are just so common that they're predictable. If you come out if a woman comes out as bisexual, well, you just haven't found the right guy yet. You're just, you got hurt by a guy in a relationship, something like that.
Or they think that means that you have threesomes all the time. Like it can't be that's what they think that means. That you're
if
not
a guy comes out as bisexual, oh, well, you're actually just gay then.
Yeah.
So either way, it benefits men. Men are always idolized in the best
Weird.
thing, you know what I mean? Because there can't be anything else. That's fun. How predictable that is. That oh no, you actually like guys no matter who it is. Because who wouldn't like guys? Look at us. And then
I'm 50-50.
Or you have you see something as being shoved in your face when it's something new, something unusual to you. I hear every single time, Blue's Clues had the Pride Parade, and everyone's like, "Oh, they're pushing this on kids." Well, did you watch Sleeping Beauty when you were a kid? Because that wasn't pushing heteronormative. Kids weren't turning heterosexual because they watched it. Also, the whole date rape thing about kissing somebody in your sleep. Whatever, it doesn't matter. That wasn't pushed on kids either. A lot of ethical questions in these old Disney movies. But there's you have all these old every form of media ever has all sorts of hetero relationships, all sorts of hetero romances, all sorts of hetero sex, and nobody gives a shit. But the second a gay person or a bi person or a trans person or an asexual person exists on screen, well, that's going to turn the kids gay. And I'm like, if fucking seeing a gay man is enough to turn you gay, you might just be gay. You might want to go, maybe maybe do some soul searching, yo. Yeah. I remember when there was a huge fucking argument. I'm sorry, I'm going on so many tangents.
Please go. You're good.
I remember when there was a huge fucking debacle because Lucky Charms put a unicorn-shaped marshmallow in the Lucky Charm, and everyone freaked out that this was going to turn kids gay because unicorns are so gay and they were going to be eating the gay every day. And it's a fucking, I tried them. They tasted like Lucky Charms. At no point was I like, neat, a unicorn. I wonder what dick tastes like. I never did it because that's not how it works. And I think everybody needs to take the time to explore themselves and figure out who they really are, because we live in a bizarrely heteronormative society and most people don't get the chance to explore that. And if you think that a fucking marshmallow is going to push you over the edge into homosexuality, I'll see you at Pride. You need to figure that shit out for yourself first and not fucking hate kids. God, makes me so angry.
Oh, I agree. And it does still go back. It's the intersection between where indoctrination butts against science too. Because these people think they have the science, but really they don't.
Yeah.
They have it kind of to a point, and then they hit a wall because their indoctrination won't let them go any further. And the dissonance starts to tell them, well, it can't be this way because I already believe this thing. And I know I'm right because I have a belief system that's front loaded with I'm always right. That's reinforced by a large swath of society that also tells me people like me are right. So the science must be wrong.
Yep. That's it, dude. They want to call scientists arrogant for thinking that we know more things because we spend our whole lives studying the things. But they think they were born right because they read it in the dusty old Bronze Age sex manual. And it sucks, dude. It really fucking sucks.
It does.
So it's basically, and what it boils down to also is this whole concept of what you are and aren't allowed to make fun of and talk about. Douglas Adams had that old quote: "Religion is the one thing that we're not allowed to critique." Why not? Because you're not. And it's like when we have in schools, we can talk about, sexism and racism, and we can talk about bad economic ideas and bad political ideas. We can talk about the history of civilizations. We can talk about all sorts of things because those things aren't taboo. But if we talk about the reality of sex and gender, if we talk about something that goes against somebody's sincerely held religious beliefs, never says who in these bills, but it means Christian.
Yep.
If we talk about any of these things, now all of a sudden we're the assholes for trampling over somebody's ideals. Well, I'm sorry. I don't care I don't care where your ideas come from. They're either good or they're bad. An idea is either harmful or beneficial. It doesn't matter what happens. In Jewish culture, when you wash your hands ceremonially before a meal, that's a good thing to do. It doesn't matter that it's a Jewish ideal. Microbiology exists no matter what your religion is. On the flip side, maybe genital mutilation isn't cool, and it doesn't matter where you come from, and it doesn't matter who you are. Maybe homophobia isn't cool, and it doesn't matter what your culture says about it. Maybe, torturing children and conversion therapy isn't a good idea, no matter what your background, your grandpappy, no matter what this stuff is. And it shouldn't be controversial to say this is a dumb fucking idea. I don't care who came up with it. But unfortunately, sometimes it is. And that, man, it blows more than I can express.
Well, because then they say that science is your religion, and that, you have a right to believe science just like I have a right to believe my religion. And basically we're the same. Because I guess, the methods by which you come to knowledge actually don't matter at all. It's just who has the majority.
Twisted version of cultural relativism. You know what I mean? It's this
the paradox of tolerance in action, too, a lot of the time.
Exactly. And that's the thing, man, is that the paradox of tolerance, it's something that only affects people who just are weak and bitchy people who are looking for a reason to be assholes. Like, because the paradox of tolerance, for those who are watching who don't know, is the idea that, like, I am tolerant of LGBT folks, but then I also should be tolerant of homophobic people as well, because they just have a different ideal than me, and I should tolerate their belief. But no, I'm cool with these different people. Therefore, I am not cool with the people who think that they should be exterminated or converted or what am I trying to say? Kicked out of society. I was going to say extirpated, but that's not a good word for this. Just like, thrown out. I can't be cool with those. Right. I'm not tolerant of Nazis. Fuck Nazis. I am tolerant of people who think that fucking LaCroix tastes good. You're wrong, but I'm cool with you being here. Fuck Nazis still. So the whole idea of this paradox of tolerance, I hear it thrown around all the time, and the only time it's seriously used in discussion is by people who are saying, oh, so you won't let me be racist. So much for the tolerant left. No, I'm not. I'm in the intolerant left, y'all. I'm not there for it.
Well, that's the thing, that it's good because they're just saying you won't tolerate my intolerance, so that makes you intolerant. Thus, we're the same. We're equivalent. Because there's no standard by which to measure it. But there is, though. Like, I'm intolerant of your opinion because it has impact on real life people. Like, you make bills, for example. Someone being trans, somebody being gay, somebody being a different race, somebody even being a different religion. Like, it's something that they should have a right to do without impediment or imposition from you, because they are harming nobody by doing this. So your intolerance has actual effects. Me being intolerant of your idea is actually a protection, whereas you being intolerant of my idea is an impediment to real life people.
Absolutely. Exactly. It's this ludicrous idea that we can break down literally every idea to just like, oh, I had a feeling about it. And that makes all ideas invalid except for my ideas. And it's like, it's just a really disingenuous way to have a conversation that never actually works. It's another way to dodge. It's another way to dodge the reality that these people are treating people like shit. And at the very beginning of this, something you threw out, you said that you hoped that I could have a conversation about these things without, I think vitriol was the word that you used. I'll throw a little bit of vitriol is the idea, with all of this. But the main thing that you have to remember about all this, and I know that you are on the same page with this as far as I can tell, is that these people didn't come to these conclusions by themselves. They weren't born this way. Nobody's born racist. Nobody's born homophobic. Nobody's born Christian. Nobody's born with any of these hateful ideologies. They have to be put there. These people were abused. They were taught these evil things. That is a form of abuse. You're twisting up somebody's mind and making them into some monster that they were never supposed to be. And now they are going out and abusing other people because that is all they know. There's a reason why children from broken homes, you sometimes see they have bad ideas about relationships because that is what they know. There's a reason why people from, alcoholic, physically abusive, and then they turn around and they go and become violently abusive in their lives because that's what they know. You bring up a kid saying that Westboro Baptist Church slogans, or that gays are going to hell, or that the blacks and whites shouldn't interbreed, and because you got to separate the tribes and the blah. You bring a kid up with this, that's what they know, and that's what they're going to go out into the world, and they might be a very good, kind, moral person doing the most moral thing that they've been taught to do, which is to be a dickhead to everybody who's different, because that's what they were taught was a good thing. And if we could just fix those kids, if we could just save those kids from being abused, they would continue to be good moral people and do actually good things. And that is why I'm a motherfucking educator, because that's the best way to do it, dude. Like, if we could stop it early, if we could fix it,
and at least
change the conversation.
No, I agree. Like, that's why the truth and love, do you know what I mean when I say truth and love ministries? The people who spend their time finding nice ways to tell gay people that they shouldn't be gay, they should be celibate, and trans people, they shouldn't transition, they should, stay conformed to the ideas that have been deemed acceptable. Those people make me the most mad. Like, they make me actually more angry than the vitriol, like the really in your face, obvious, I'm a bigot, I'm proud of it, go fuck yourself, I hate you people. Like, because those people are so much more easily dismantled and dismissed, because it's just on the surface obvious they're bad. It's the people that have found rhetorical devices that they can use to manipulate people into thinking that they're doing this thing that's intended to stifle and harm you in order to conform to what their idea of you should be. They find a way to do that is using rhetoric that isn't as divisive and is more likely to manipulate you and compel you and make you feel as though they care. And that is an exceptional kind of dangerous, and it's much more difficult to combat.
It's insidious. It's subversive.
Because I say, I love these people. I'm just trying to help them because I love these people. I need to reach them. That is awful.
The thing that really turns my stomach about it is that some of them fucking believe that too. And
they really do.
They think they're serious. Yeah.
Of course.
That kills me. And that's why, I often say, and I haven't, so Jesus loves you is something that I hear a lot. I think it is one of the most cruel things that you can say to somebody. Especially somebody who's an atheist, who's LGBT, who's, in these marginalized groups that we're talking about here. It is one of the most fucked up things you can say, because what you are saying is the root of Christianity is, hey, you're a piece of shit. You're evil. You're disgusting. You're immoral. You're sadistic. You're sinful. You're slimy. You're broken. You're backwards. You're diseased. You are a disease. You are a plague upon this earth. But you don't need to burn for eternity for it, because I love you so much. But you are going to burn for eternity for it if you don't love me back. So it gets into the whole complex, both directions. When you say Jesus loves you to somebody, or God loves you, or whatever like that, you are taking something incredible. You're taking this beautiful thing, this love. You're taking something that drives so many lives and makes so many people so happy and gives so much meaning to so many people, and you're twisting it and contorting it into this backhanded insult to tell somebody just how fucked up and horrible they are, and how they deserve to be tortured forever for the sin of being born as them. But I love you. Yeah. Isn't it sweet? And it distorts and perverts someone's idea of what love even is.
It makes love an abuse dynamic. That jinx.
Exactly. Yeah. This abusive boyfriend. I'm stupid, but he's smart. I'm disgusting. He makes me clean. I don't deserve love. I don't deserve compassion. I deserve to be hurt. So he hurts me sometimes to teach me a lesson. And if I wasn't so stupid, I wouldn't need him to hurt me. I'm so happy I have him. I love him. He's my everything. He's more important than my kids. He's more important than my parents. He's more important than myself. You wouldn't, if I wasn't pointing up, you wouldn't know if I was talking about fucking Jerry, the drunk down the street. And like, that's what we do to fucking children. We teach children this day in and day out and terrorize them and abuse them with this hateful, evil idea until they themselves, like we just said, grow up to think that it's good. And they do that to other people, thinking they're doing something good. These are good people that have been abused so bad that they are doing horrible things, thinking that they're good things. And that is the most horrible thing about this fucking world. It tears me up inside. And you're absolutely right. The people who say, Jesus loves you and that's why you shouldn't go be gay, you shouldn't, transition, you shouldn't do whatever because God made you perfect just the way you are, as they wear fucking glasses and get liposuction and take whatever vitamins they need in the morning and heart medication that they need. But that's different, right? You're perfect as long as you're straight and cisgender. Everything else can change. It is child abuse. It is wrong, and it makes me incredibly sad to think about. And if I can do one good thing in my life, I hope I can fix that shit just a little bit.
I can relate to that because
and
it's so hard to talk about.
Why you're here, I think.
It's kind of it really is.
Yeah.
It's so hard to have conversations like this because so many people hear something like that, or even hear you talking about religion at all, like saying like, hey, like, doesn't this seem a little bit fucked up to you? And then they just hear like, okay, well, now you're a bigot then. Now, like, you're talking about my beliefs like that, which makes it you a bigot. And you just said everybody like me is an abuser, and I have children, and I'm not an abuser. How dare you say something like that to me? And that's why I think there's so much more nuance to it, because I don't want to close off that community from hearing me out when it comes to having conversations about this, because those are the people whose minds I would like to shift, right? Which is why I like talking to the deconstruction community a lot, because a lot of people are staying Christian or staying in their belief system and deconstructing and realizing how bad, like how that is baked into this shit. Like everything you just said is baked into it. You can find your way to not be like that and still call yourself a Christian, but it is baked into the pie. You just might not eat that part of the pie it's baked into, but that's your pie, and it's baked into it, whether you like it or not. It's easy enough to point out.
That is such a nicer metaphor than I've ever used. I love that. Baked into the pie. I'm using that.
Okay, take it. It's yours. It's yours. Whatever you need to do with it, totally yours. But yeah, so... But they have the power too. Like when people say that to somebody like me, I'm like, I am operating from the lowest part of the power dynamic totem pole in this scenario. Like you guys are drafting legislation to send people like me to conversion therapy if we want to be happy. It's like to literally sanction torturing me into emotionally abusing me and into submission. So that you'll be happier with who I am, even though I am in hell. To make you comfortable, you want to make me miserable. And I'm supposed to what? Like sit on my hands and not criticize you? Like not say that, hey, maybe the cycle needs to be fucking broken somewhere? Like you're interfering with education. You're having all of these impacts on society because people are less educated and more certain that they're fucking right just because they were born. And I guess that makes them right. They were born in a certain demographic of people. Like they're less likely to do source methodology. They're less likely to even come to the table and have an honest conversation to begin with. And they're more likely to create systems that abuse and subjugate people so that they can be comfortable, as opposed to incorporating those people into the broader society where they deserve to be because they're not fucking hurting you. Like, am I supposed to sit on my hands and not point to that problem and say, hey, that's a fucking problem? Like, maybe we should do something about that problem. But in order to do that, I have to criticize the religion because that's where it's coming from. And then, like, it's just this vicious cycle. And I don't know what to do. So I'm just doing the only thing I know how, which is to just make mouth noises on the internet with people who are smarter than me.
That's a good place to start. Because, like, honestly, if you look at every revolution throughout history has been because of enhanced forms of communication, proliferation of sharing ideas. And when more people are able to communicate and say, hey, this kind of blows, right? Then better things happen. And so like, this is a great way to start. And you're right. It reminds me of that old political cartoon of the guy beating the other guy over the head with a cross, calling him every name in the book. And then the other guy takes the cross away and they're like, hey, have some respect here.
Yeah.
Like, come on. So like, yeah, no, it's normalized abuse. And it's, you know, this systemic issue where white, Christian, cisgendered, heterosexual men are the norm for humanity. And like we just said a second ago with representation, when you see a gay person, well, this is shoving it in my face, not just, oh, they exist today. And it's representation, it's showing them. When you see, I remember how big of a deal it was when Mr. Rogers had a black person come on.
Yeah.
And they were friends and they shared a pool together. Oh, you're shoving these black people in my face. Imagine if somebody said that shit today. Imagine if somebody talked about that today. Oh, they have all these women wearing pants on TV. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Shoving it in my face, right? It's not. It's just showing representation. It's showing people that you exist. And the more we have that, not only a representation of us as human beings, as atheists, that we're here, we don't, notice how many babies I'm not eating in front of you.
Right now.
But also to show that, wait until after camp.
Yeah, that's right. That's for after party.
But also representation of the ideas, because if all you've ever said is, Christianity is this beautiful, wonderful thing that never does anything wrong, and anybody who says anything bad about it is evil and mean and hurtful and horrible and trying to hurt, well, the second we allow these ideas to be out there, if we could criticize Christianity the way that Fox News criticizes Islam on any day today, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we could criticize Christianity the way that we criticize Democrats or Republicans, if we could criticize Christianity the way that we criticize, a TV show or anything else that is a part of who a person is, your political party, what kind of entertainment you enjoy, what kind of clothes that you wear, the kind of makeup that you wear, the kind of music you listen to, you might say that this is a deeper part of who I am, but really it's just a fucking idea that you have. And there are other ideas. It's like the people, I said that I tolerate them and I barely do. The people who fucking drink LaCroix. There are other beverages in the world.
I don't know what LaCroix is.
They clearly don't realize that there are other beverages. And if we can just show them that there are other beverages, then they won't be fucking drinking LaCroix anymore. And it'll be a better world because of it. And so if we can just normalize conversations about religion and be able to have at least have a conversation about Christianity at the same level that Christians have about atheism. At least have that same conversation. You're a Christian, but you're so nice. Like that's how many times you get that? Like,
I know, I get that as an atheist. Which is why representation does matter, even for atheists too. Like more of us, and so many people are afraid to own the label, even though it actually belongs to them. Because what they see, and this is why representation is important, because what they see is people that aren't like them a lot of times. Like I'm a minority on YouTube because I'm bisexual and I'm a woman. And I run a channel where I talk about, ideas and social science and atheism. That is a market that is all cornered by a lot of cis het straight white dudes for the most part.
Yeah.
Like
as are most markets.
But like you don't see as many people of color. You don't see as many people who are even deconverted from different religions, because I was a former Christian. Like you don't see as many people who are in the LGBT community. You don't see as many people who are trans, non-binary. Like if you're starting to see it more, but the more that happens, the more people are going to see a version of themselves that will make them feel more comfortable to be like, oh, okay, this is for me too. This is for me too. There's a place for me here too. My voice matters too. And that will start the change, I hope.
There's also, there's underlying dynamics to that, is that like the people who are like, say, trans non-binary folks, they're going to have a totally different set of arguments to have to deal with.
For sure.
Me sitting here talking about atheism, I hate God, or I'm actually racist because I'm an atheist or something, some other whatever thing. But
want to sin.
A trans person having to talk about atheism, well, oh, you just want to sin. That's what it is. It's a totally different thing. You just defy God. You don't like it, whatever. It's a completely different set of arguments that they're going to have. And so they're probably not going to get picked up by the same algorithms. Also, like, the new Hollywood that is YouTube, that is social media, is predominantly centered in America. And here in America, white evangelical Christianity runs the show. And so that's the thing that there's a reason why I don't do a lot of, content criticizing Islam or Hinduism or Shinto or Buddhism or whatever else, because it's not around me. There are double-digit churches within walking distance of my house. I've moved several times in the course of my life. That has always been the case because I've always lived in Oklahoma. That has never not been the reality. So that's what I'm going to fucking talk about. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Why would I have anything else to talk about? So it's tough, dude. It's really tough. And I think for more people trying to come into this and more people trying to break out into this scene, having to push through the wall of people who look like me has got to be fucking aggravating.
That's not to make it seem like, I don't want to make it seem like your voice doesn't matter and it's not valuable. It just, I think it is an objective fact that fewer people like who aren't white cis dudes feel as though they have a corner of the stage to stand on. And I would love it if more people did. And that diversity of voice is so valuable. I've learned so much from people not like me. Like the amount that I have grown in my breadth of knowledge about the experience of people who aren't like me just since I started this, from exposure to those people and having conversations and listening to those creators is something that has changed my perspective in such a positive way, and I want that to happen for more people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, that's a good organic. We have lots of questions. People have sent questions. Okay. I haven't read any of the questions yet. I will start to read the questions now. I've got to scroll up because YouTube is weird about super chats.
I've been kind of peeking over here at the chat.
Are you?
Just kind of seeing what's going on. We got a lot of people who are on the right side of this argument about LaCroix. I'm glad.
My audience knows what's up. I got a pretty solid audience. I don't know what LaCroix is, so I'm just going to default to
You're lucky.
They know what's up.
Your world is good.
Oh my gosh. Okay, funny. All right, so Tim Northrup is the first one. As to your run on hell, etc., Forrest, yeah, that kind of Christianity is toxic. And in any case, for me, leading with Jesus' love means nothing if I don't show my love first. We all can do better.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's charming.
That is charming. All right. So there is Tim. Oh, Tim again. Shannon and Forrest. So much of this indoctrination and misinformation just boils down to fear and or control. When people just let go a little, the journey of life and learning is so fucking beautiful.
No, and that's like you said, fear and control, and then you talked about letting go and exploring the journey. You can't do that if you are domesticated, and that is what religion is for. It's domesticating humans. And so, like, if you are exploring and having fun and learning and seeing what the world is, domesticated animals don't do that.
Oh, I just domesticated. I'm stealing that. You can have the pie because that's not as good.
By all means.
Domesticating humans. That is such a good way to put it. I'm gonna simmer in that because I'm gonna totally use that.
I could elaborate, but we got questions.
We do. We have a few more. Anthony Scranacci. I'm so sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. Cool. I've been told the phrase word salad is used in the diagnosis of narcissism and schizophrenia. I don't know that that's true. Is that true? And is it bad to use that term to describe theists when they argue somewhat incoherently? I feel it's somewhat like diagnosing. If you look at the DSM, I don't think you will see the phrase word salad.
I wouldn't know anything about that. I still use the word, so if that word is ableist, please let me know. But like, I don't think that's accurate.
I don't believe that is accurate. I can't say with 100% certainty without the DSM in front of me. But
you could use it for that's diagnostic of a Broca's aphasia, but not Well,
it wouldn't be affiliated like with narcissism or schizophrenia. It certainly wouldn't be affiliated with narcissism.
If anything, they'd be overly eloquent.
They would be, yeah. They're usually incredibly persuasive. And in schizophrenia, I don't know that you would necessarily see them making... I mean, I guess they could make nonsense strings if they're having an event, but you wouldn't see it referred to in that sort of colloquial sense in any sort of diagnostic criteria. So I don't see it as ableist. I mean, I'm open to being corrected, but it's just not in my experience or exposure something that I would agree is the case.
As far as I know, the answer is no to all of that. But I'm also, I'm not a psychologist, not a psychiatrist.
I'm not a clinician.
I'm not a neuroscientist, not a clinician. I'm just a dude who knows some things about biology.
I'm just a chick who knows a bunch of stuff about neuroscience and
that's what it's all about.
Fair bit about and who is a mental health advocate. Like I talk a lot about like ableist speech. Like one of my big things is when people call religion a mental disorder, or
fuck that.
Thank you. Like it pissed me off so bad. I did like a 45-minute long video that's pinned to the top of my channel that's just made of fucking citations, just like.
Well, as I pull no punches. I pull no punches with religion. Religion is poison. Religion is evil. Religion is abusive. Religion is corrosive to the fabric of society. Religion is a problem. Religious people have been abused by being taught religion. They should be helped. And that's not to come on them like, put upon, you poor, stupid things. In the same way that you wouldn't do that to a cancer patient. This person needs help. They need to be shown something. They need to be treated. They need to be helped out. You wouldn't go to somebody with, say, schizophrenia and be like, you poor, deranged idiot. Let me please help you out. You wouldn't do that. So if somebody's religious, they've been abused, they're an abuse victim, treat them with some goddamn dignity and speak to them like an adult. Have the balls to tell them, hey, I think what you're saying is fucking destructive and I respect and value you enough to not buy into it. Let's talk about why. Like, I don't know, man. I that is also a big trigger for me to have people just call every religious person stupid. Fuck off. Like it's so frustrating.
It frustrates me on an additional level because it turns mental health into a pejorative.
Yes,
that's the intent,
girl. Absolutely,
that's the intent, and it's not like it's not a pejorative. Everybody has. Like mental health is a spectrum. Like none of us just wake up. Like it would be a mental health disorder if you woke up every day and were like, everything's the best. And I'm like, that would be disorganized. That would be disordered.
Yes.
Like everybody has an aspect of themselves that can be improved upon, or that they need to work on, or that they focus on, or that everybody has that. Some people have it to differing degrees and severities where they need a bit of an additional boost, some assistance, perhaps.
Yes.
But the same thing can be said about somebody who has a sprained ankle. But you wouldn't call somebody who you feel is dumb, like you wouldn't call them like, it's just like having cancer. No, you wouldn't say that because in your mind you don't make a connection between those two things. Yep. You don't say, well, cancer is a thing that makes you inherently lesser than me. So it's not. But when you say, well, people who are religious are just mentally ill, that tells me a couple of things. It tells me, one, you don't know anything about psychology or psychiatry. That's the fuck at all. Maybe even less about religion. And that you think that is detrimental and that means something bad about the person. And you want them to feel that. And perpetuating that makes me want to fucking punch through walls. Because it's a serious problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's my tangent. It's my fucking pet peeve.
No, I like that because I didn't think to factor in the fact that using mental health as a pejorative is an issue, and it has been for a long time. Yeah. I didn't think to include that, and I'm glad you did.
Yeah, and it's just factually inaccurate too. It's just factually inaccurate.
Yes. You're wrong and you're an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Way to go.
It's the worst kind of wrong. The kind that makes you a dickhead. That's the worst kind of wrong to be. Be better. Be a better fucking person.
Absolutely.
All right, cool.
What's next?
Yeah, there's still more questions, but then I started talking.
How dare you?
That's a problem I have. I just keep talking. Fair Witness, $6.66. You'll love to see it. Just wanted to send 666 penny wishes for health and happiness. Oh, that's very kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sashin Oh my gosh, I'm not even gonna come close. Our squish. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I tried. I'm so sorry.
Where does it sound like it's from?
Oh, I feel like, I don't know, Austrian or German, perhaps?
Rad.
Yeah, I don't, but I'm probably way off there too. I probably just made it where I'm just digging a hole at this point.
Right.
Forrest, is there a particular cultivar of potatoes you would recommend as a romantic gift to a beloved? I mean, I love potatoes. That's interesting. Okay.
Do you know do you know what they're talking about? This
I
is
have
an old school
no
fan
idea.
All right, so
No idea.
thank you for being a fan. You're awesome, you weird, whatever Austrian, Swedish bastard, whoever you are. So here's the thing: is that this is something that I advocate for quite a bit. Is that if you love someone and you want to give them a gift, don't fucking buy them flowers. Flowers are the worst romantic gesture in the world.
Dead plant genitalia.
Well, yeah. First of all, it's fucking weird. Second of all, it's expensive, so I value you monetarily. What is that? It smells pretty and it looks good. I like you because of how you look and smell. It dies and withers very quickly. My love is short-lived. It's going to go away pretty fast, you know? It doesn't do fucking anything. They sit there on a table. My love for you is idle. My love for you is stagnant. What is that? Give somebody a potato if you love them, because a potato is ugly. I love you no matter what you look like. It comes out of the fucking ground. I love you from the ground up with you can do everything with a potato. You can boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. You can and julienne them, and you can saute them, and you can scallop them. I love you in many ways. I want to do many things with you. I want to take you around the world and show you off and have fun with you. It lasts for goddamn ever. You put it in the cabinet, it'll start to grow eyes and make new potatoes. My love for you is ongoing. It's a new thing that blossoms every day. Get somebody a potato if you love them. It is a better symbol of love. And to answer the question, the best place to get a love potato, cheapest one you can find. Don't go buy one of the big fancy baking potatoes because they're like $5 for no reason. What's that? Go get the cheapest asshole of a potato that you can find. A big bag of them if you can for a couple of bucks. And then you're supporting small businesses. That's cool. And you're building the economy. And you're helping the world by showing your love with potatoes. And then you go have mashed potatoes for dinner. How great is that? With your romantic partner. Get your guy or girl or non-binary pal a bunch of potatoes and fucking make a dope-ass shepherd's pie and be happy together as either a couple or however many consenting adults are in your relationship. Get potatoes for all of them.
I don't think I've ever seen such enthusiasm for potatoes in my...
You've never been loved, is what it is.
That's the problem. I just realized that I've never felt real love. I've never.
No one's gotten you potatoes yet.
Well, I mean, not specifically to demonstrate that they love me. I mean, people have purchased me potato-based foods
now
that
you know what to get for your partner.
Oh, I will. I'll buy Paul potatoes all day. That's fine. He'd probably like that. Actually, he's very practical. He'd be like, "Great, I can use this."
He probably would, because they're delicious.
Trying to find him something for Valentine's Day was. He's a pragmatist, so he's like, I don't need stuff. Why would you buy stuff I don't need? And I'm like, oh!
Bitch, are you hungry? I baked you this. It's got bacon bits. Bam.
I got him chocolate covered raisins and shot glasses with his hockey team on it. I nailed it.
That's
I think.
tight.
Yeah, you can use these shot glasses and eat these chocolate covered raisins. All right, we have more questions. You guys have lots of questions today. Oh, Jim, hi Jim. Jim Burrows. What does Forrest mean by domesticating humans? Interestingly, there is a family sailing around the world from Texas, young Earth creationists, despite sailing around the world. What do you mean by cultivating humans? Domesticating humans?
What I mean is you're getting them to do what you want. You're getting them to behave. You're getting them to fall in line. What do you do when you domesticate a dog or a cow or something or a plant or anything? You're bringing out the traits that you want in it and punishing the ones that you don't. So with domesticating humans, what I mean by that is, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, if you tell a child anything every day of their life, especially on Sundays, they're going to believe it, right? So if you tell a human from the time they're born, hey, good people obey their parents and bad people who go to hell don't obey their parents. It says right here, honor your father and mother. You now have an obedient child. If you tell these people, good people are going to go, work in this kind of industry and wear these kind of clothes and say chanting and do these kind of chants and say these kind of prayers at this particular time. And when you hear this bell, you do this thing. They're going to do all of that shit. You could equate it very much to public education in some ways, especially here in America. But religion is much more pervasive and much more good at it. Is that you're going to wear these magical underpants, you're going to cover your knees and your ankles, you're going to wear something to cover your hair, you're going to
fulfill this specific gender role.
Yes, you're going to fill a special role. You're going to let your husband rape you because that's your job, is to not ask questions. You're going to fulfill your wifely duties. You're going to raise children this way. You're going to teach your children these things. You're going to give this much money to the church. Anything that you throw in there, you tell them that this is a moral and good way to believe and to be, and it's the best way to be a human. You're the most human if you do this. And everybody who doesn't do this is a savage, is wicked, is evil, is a witch, is a murderer, is a baby killer, is something. You put this in their head, and you don't have to hit them. You hit them up here, you're good. You don't have to beat somebody into submission. You've already done it. And you can look up, if you're interested in this and you want to explore this a little bit further, Stephen Hassan, I believe, made the BITE model, which is it's BITE, stands for behavior, information, thought, and emotion. And it's control, behavior control, information control, thought control, emotional control. And it's how it's supposed to be focused on cults, but it's religion is what it is behavior control. Hey, pray at this particular time, act this particular way, dress this particular way, fill these roles, whatever it is. Information control. Don't go watch the Stephen Hawking documentary. Don't go watch Discovery Channel. Watch, Dino Adventures with Creationist Ted or whatever the fuck it is. Watch this other thing. Only read these books. Don't go explore the public library. Don't say gay in the public schools, that kind of thing. Thought control. Hey, I hear that you're having doubts. Bad people have doubts. Good people know that they can trust the Lord and all these things. So
doubt your doubts.
Doubt your doubt. Exactly. Don't think that. Don't let those thoughts in your head. That's the devil trying to trick you. That's the devil trying to put. And then finally, emotional control. How dare you question me and question God and question that? You should feel terrible about yourself. See all these empty chairs in the room here? Every one of these empty chairs is one of your friends that's going to burn in hell because you didn't bring them here today. Cry about it now. Go home and feel bad about all these people that you let down. Oh, your best friend is gay? If you don't punish them for it so they turn around, you need to quit talking to them because they're terrible and you're terrible if you associate with them. These are methods of controlling someone's mind and domesticating them to be what you want them to be, whether they like it or not, because they think they like it because you told them to. That's what I mean by domesticating humans. I mean the same thing I mean about training a dog. You're bringing out the traits that you want in this person, so that they bark on command, they sit on command, they speak on command, they stay on command, they only eat when you tell them to, they come when they're called, they heal right around you. That is what religion does to human beings.
Oh, that's an interesting perspective to look at it. Do you think that might pertain more to really stringent evangelicism? As opposed to... It
certainly does, but you could apply it to a lot of different things, man.
So I think it might exist on us because I was raised in I don't know, based on what I'm seeing now that I'm in this realm, it would be like Christianity light if I was the way that, because I'm Canadian too, right? So I think for Americans, it's it's so in your face constantly all the time. For me, for example, I never had an issue with evolution. I was never taught that was a problem, at all. And the church that I was in, if you fell away, they just kind of were okay, well, it was nice to have you here anyway, bye. Mm-hmm. So when I hear abuse, I think, okay, maybe that's not representative of my experience. And I worry that other people might hear abuse who were me and think maybe that's too much, even though it does apply broadly and you can definitely point to instances where it 100% does. Do you think that maybe it's too much to apply it generically all the way across the board?
It's, I do use a lot of extremes in the way that I talk about these things, because it is the extremes that end up making the conversion therapy bills and shit, is the extremes that make the policies that hurt people. Right. You talk about evolution specifically here in the States. We have on some high school textbooks about biology big stickers that say, warning, this book contains information about evolution.
Fuck off, are you serious?
It's just a theory. I'm dead serious. It says, there's a big sticker that says, warning, this book contains information about evolution in public schools. It's because it's special, because state boards of education passed this, and it says evolution is just a theory and should be seriously considered before believed and things like this. And why don't you have that sticker on the geology textbook about the theory of plate tectonics? Why don't you have that sticker in the astronomy textbook about the theory that the Earth goes around the sun? Why doesn't the sticker in the biology textbook talk about germ theory or cell theory?
Because it doesn't threaten the soul, Forrest.
About atomic theory.
Because it doesn't threaten the soul.
Exactly. This is religious indoctrination and bullying. This is fascism weaving its way into public schools. So here in America, it is probably a lot less than it is up there in Canada, but the implications are still the same, and they're reading the same fucking book. And so if you have a book where you can have somebody who is like, hey, we get together every week, kind of gives me some meaning, makes me feel pretty special inside, get a little bit of warm fuzzy whenever I sing this song, that's cool. And then you have the same book where you have the fucking Lord's Resistance Army coming out of it. Maybe the problem is the book. Sure, there's a problem that there's interpretation, but like also maybe we can talk about how the book is the problem too.
Yeah.
And the teaching of these things. So
I think the book's a fucking problem, for the record. I think I think the book's a fucking problem.
Yeah.
So because it can be interpreted that way. Like and very easily so, and on a broad scale, and gives people this like insipid like moral like indignation, like this incredulity about how they're just inherently right, and how dare you assume otherwise, you moron. I have God on my side. It's in my book. And did you know that science was basically invented by Christians, and we made schools?
And that's the problem, is that this
and it all comes
you said, this evil is baked into the pie, as you said. I love that phrase, because you could make the argument very easily that, well, it's misinterpreted. And I would make that same argument. I get told all the time. I get told on a regular basis that evolution is racist. That if you believe in evolution, well, that means that black people and white people are different, and white people are more evolved, and all these things, and that means we're superior.
If you believe in evolution, you know that that's not true.
Exactly.
You know the science.
And this is where you get eugenics, and this is where you get Nazis and this stuff. But the thing is, if you actually learn what evolution actually is and how it actually works, you'll know why all that shit makes no sense. And I would say you're misinterpreting evolution. You had a shitty teacher who taught it to you wrong. And these people who talk about the Bible could very easily say the same thing. The difference being that there is not shit in actual science that has anything to do with that. There is a racist history to science, and there are some scientists who believed in evolution to be racist. Linnaeus, dickhead. Fucking tried to measure human skulls and talk about how Africans were more like monkeys than people. Big fucking problem. Fuck that dude. But because I'm a scientist, I can say, hey, we have better evidence, and fuck that dude. You can't do that in religion. Right. You have a history of that's the whole reason it was used. Christianity was used to make sure slavery worked. You domesticated humans. You taught the slaves. It says right here in the book that you are less than me, and this is all you can ever do. And God himself said that you have to obey me. Otherwise, you're not worth anything but the dirt on the ground. You're barely worth that now. And the fucking slaves believed them because that's where they were raised to believe. That's where they're born and bred to believe. Gay people were taught. It says right here in the book that you're hideous, you're an abomination, you're a monster, you're evil. And that shit still happens to this day. It's like you said, baked into the pie. It's not a misinterpretation. It's in black and fucking white. The KKK and the Confederacy had the Bible on their side. And fucking racists don't have evolution on their side. Have there been racist people who were scientists? Absolutely. Fuck those guys. Because that's how science works. Like we talked about earlier, it progresses, it changes, it gets better. Religion doesn't. You still have the same dusty old book, and you're trying to make up for the sins of the past rather than just starting fresh and saying, hey, maybe we were wrong about a lot of things and maybe having an actual apology and saying that maybe condoms aren't as bad as AIDS and it was a bad thing to say that in Africa and spread the fucking AIDS epidemic because we just didn't want, to have condoms around. Maybe it's time to apologize for that. Maybe it's time to say, hey, yes, a lot of priests raped a lot of children. It's time to stop protecting them and stop moving them around and stop, covering their legal fees. Turns out that was a crap thing to do. We're not going to do that anymore. Then maybe I'd take it a little bit more seriously because that's what science does.
I'd like to throw in and also not legislate women's bodies.
Yes, absolutely. Hey, maybe humans can make their own decisions and maybe women are humans too. Maybe women are allowed to decide about their own reproductive destinies, about what they're going to be and who they're going to be and how many kids they're going to have and if they're going to have kids. And maybe if somebody rapes somebody, that person shouldn't have to go through that trauma again and again and again and again and again every single fucking day of their life because you forced them to be an incubation chamber, you fucking monster. Maybe it's time to give people rights over their own bodies again. That'd be rad. Then I would take it seriously.
Yeah, it'd be nice if people with uteruses could decide what to do with those uteruses instead of being told what to do with those uteruses. And all of that goes back to religion too. Like there's so many things that can be tracked back, and like it goes back to that pie. Like it's the same fucking pie. The evil shit is like you can see the evil shit in the pie. Some people are like, well, I'm just gonna eat around it, and some people are like, I'm just gonna shove this whole fucking pie in my face. But it's the same fucking pie.
When you first used the term, I said it's so much nicer than the term that I use. I always say if you're going to dig through that shit to try to find a piece of corn, but like that's the way I usually phrase it. Pie is so much sweeter.
Yeah, everybody likes pie.
Everybody likes pie.
We still have way more questions. I'm sorry, I'm keeping you long. Is that okay if we get through a couple more questions? Fine. Are you okay? Sorry.
That's totally cool. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. Good. All right. So Anthony again. Oh, sorry. First, Silver Harlow? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so bad at pronouncing names. No offense. Love how that starts. But I've not laughed. Let's do it. It's good. No offense, but I've not laughed this much during any of your shows before. This guy's fantastic. Heart. Oh. There you go.
Well, thank you.
You did a good job. That's endorsement. Anthony again. Thanks, Anthony. Sorry, wasn't saying religious people are mentally ill. I know better, thanks to you. Oh, well, that's good to hear. Thanks. That's my cousin is a psychologist and warned me about the phrase word salad. I had to look it up. Love you guys. I may look it up too. And Anthony, I wasn't suggesting that you were. I just sometimes when I hear that, I just go on my own side tangent. So I'm sorry if I gave you the impression I thought that you were. Anthony again. I'd say it's not domestication of humans, but rather slightly subtle subjugation of humans. Maybe they can go hand in hand too, as well.
You can use either one you want, man.
Forrest isn't going to police your speech like an SJW. Tim again. Thanks, Tim. I understand your extremism growing up Jehovah's Witness and breaking everything apart and putting it back together shows just how important your perspective is. So there you go. Yeah. Tim's giving you some endorsement. And Saeed Vasquez loved Forrest's sex and sensibility video. Comes in handy out here in small-minded West Texas. What was your sex and sensibility video? I don't know if I saw that one yet.
It's a video that I published about a year ago. And basically all I did was I talked about how in biology, every definition, it comes equipped with a million caveats, except, unless, until, without, with, whatever. Like, for example, life. There is no definition for life. We have no fucking idea what life is. We have a list of qualifications that make something alive, and most of those don't apply some of the time anyway, so it's whatever, So when it comes to biological sex, the way that we determine biological sex is gamete size. It has nothing to do with who has babies or behaviors or anything like that. If you have lots and lots of very small little gametes, we call those sperm and you're a boy. If you have very few large gametes, we call those eggs and you're a girl. But that isn't always binary either. There are plenty of species that don't produce gametes at all. And there are plenty of species that only produce one kind of gamete. And there are plenty of species that produce more than two kind of gametes. And so just like pretty much every other biological, definition of anything, there's a lot of caveats and addendums to the concept of sex. Mm-hmm. And so the whole video is just expressing the fact that, sex and gender are different things. Gender is a social construct, not a biological one. And that neither one of them are binary. And that the concept of sex is like the concept of species. It just doesn't really it doesn't have a lot of bearing in reality. It's something that we use to categorize things, and that doesn't always work. And when you base your framework for reality around a categorization system that doesn't work, you're going to have a bad time. And so the whole video is just talking about how concepts like sex and gender don't really work biologically. And while they are useful sometimes, there's a whole lot of wiggle room and a whole lot of gray area in there. And so if you'd like, I can give a very brief, like 3 or 5 minute synopsis of it, but I don't know if that's what you want to do.
No, go ahead.
Okay, just very briefly for people who don't want to go through the whole thing is there's more combinations than just XX and XY. You can be XXY, you can be X nothing. There's a lot of variation in there, so it's not a 50-50 split. And you could argue, well, those are syndromes and those are diseases and bad things happen. Okay, they're still human beings. So, like, who are you going to tell them what they are? What's that all about? Also, we determine sex by gamete size. What if you're fucking infertile? Then it doesn't matter anyway. So are you going to tell me that I'm not a boy if I don't produce sperm? Huh? Also, we talk about gene pathways in that video. A lot of times people talk about, well, you have a Y chromosome if you're a guy. That's not how that works. Everybody watching this has the chromosomes for both testes and ovaries.
Doesn't it have to do with SRI, or SRY?
SRY is SRY is the gene on the Y chromosome that is sort of like a switch, but here's how it works: is that on chromosome 17, which everybody has, you have a gene called SOX9, and SOX9's job is to make ovaries. It makes testes. If you have a single X chromosome, the end X chromosome, what we call an allosome. So you have this X chromosome. X chromosome has another gene called NR0B1. NR0B1 shuts off XOS9, and that's why you have ovaries. I also have NR0B1. So why don't I have ovaries? It's because I have SRY. SRY on my Y chromosome stops NR0B1, which otherwise would have stopped So it's this fucking back and forth complicated genetic dance. And by the way, birds are backwards. Birds, fucking the homologous chromosomes are the males, and the heterogeneous ones are the females. And they have to do the back and forth dance to be females. And it's a whole thing. And plants are fucking worse. So like, it's this whole thing where it's this complicated genetic dance. It's in no way simple, or I think the word I use is laconic, and I shouldn't have used that word because nobody knows what that shit means. But like it's in no way straightforward or simple or easy to understand. It's a complicated dance. You could have X chromosomes and have a point mutation on your NR0B1 gene and still have, a male body, a male brain chemistry. Estrogen produces male brain architecture. So like you, as a baby, as a fetus, had to bind estrogen in the womb so that you didn't get a boy brain. That's a whole thing. Also, we talk about the neuroscience of it and how trans people have neural architecture that aligns with their gender identities, not their genitalia. And so the simple point of the whole video is that this classification system fucking sucks. Just like species, it's not a solid set in stone thing. It's just a way that we're trying to make sense of nature, and that doesn't always work. And that just things like saying, well, you have a penis, or you have a vagina, or you have an X chromosome, or you have a Y chromosome, or you're whatever, doesn't mean dick. It doesn't mean anything. And that this isn't as binary as you think that it might be. That's the whole point of the video. So if you want to go watch it, it's called Sex and Sensibility. It's on my channel. It's about a year old now. And it's also one of my earliest videos, which means the whole thing was recorded and edited on this cell phone right here. So forgive me for how bad it is. My newer videos would look much better, but I hate my old videos, dude. They're terrible.
Oh, yeah. If you go back in my back catalog, it's the same difference. I had like this old shit laptop with those.
Yep. Also, I didn't know how sound editing worked. Yeah, I didn't know how sound worked, so I had my microphone sitting on the table in front of me, and I was pounding the table the whole time while I was talking.
You need an arm.
There's percussion in the video the whole time as well. So,
because I can't believe you were animated, Forrest. That doesn't sound like you at all.
Yeah, no, yeah. Usually so quiet and demure.
And your channel is in the description too, so people can easily go there and find it. Of course, yeah, absolutely.
That's very kind of you.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. And then I promise I'll let you go do your thing. One more from Anthony again. Thanks, Anthony. One more comment just because I can. You guys rule. Thank you. That's very kind. The ugliest man ever. That's funny. That's a funny name. Any other sneaky ways to try to help kids in YEC homes? Asking because my brother threatened to assault me if I ever try to counter his Christian parenting program.
Ooh, girl. Well, wow.
That's a lot.
I am probably legally obligated to say keep yourself safe.
Yes.
And don't engage Jesus of Christ land, bro. That's rough. But I would say the best thing that you can do is just teach what evidence actually is and how to follow it. Because like the biggest problem when we talk, especially with younger creationists, is we have an issue of what is evidence, what counts as evidence. Is evidence important? And so like, if you can teach lessons of like how science is done, how scientific discoveries are made, what counts as good science, you won't ever have to say the word evolution and they'll stumble upon it for themselves. Because I remember when I was first starting in teaching, I already knew what science was. I knew stuff, but like I was teaching some kids about atoms and I was like, everything's made of atoms and atoms are made of protons and neutrons. And then there's electrons going around the outside. Isn't that super cool? And one of the kids was like, how do you know that? How do you know there's what the shape of the atom is? How do you know everything's made of atoms? How do you know that protons are positive and neutron or electrons are negative? How do you know any of that? And I was like, I don't know. That was a thing. And I knew how science worked. And so that allowed me to go from there and learn a lot of stuff. And that made me a better scientist and a better educator, because that was a big start in my journey of like actually getting good at science as well as teaching it. So that's what I would say is if you can teach them how to learn things and what counts as good evidence, they will come across the evidence for themselves someday.
Yeah.
And they might just realize that, hey, I have a different set of rules for Christianity than I do for everything else. And that's a problem. That'll help them deconstruct themselves.
Yeah, I would echo that and add that you don't have to counter the points directly. You can just like if you're talking to your nieces or nephews, you can just say, and they bring something like that up, you can say, "Oh, how did you find that out? Yeah. Can you show me how you found that out?" And if they say, "Well, I was just told," you can say, "Oh, do you think that there's better ways to find things out? Like, could you tell me more about that? Like, how would you look it up? Like, if you wanted to teach somebody else about that, where would you start? Like, then you can start to like lightly coax them towards understanding that, oh, maybe just hearing things from positions of authority isn't the best way to cultivate my knowledge base."
It's like when you're learning. I remember when I was learning Spanish, my professor told me that oftentimes people who are learning as a second language speak the language more clearly and more concisely than somebody who's been speaking it their whole life, who speaks in slang and drawl and all these things. Someone who learns English as a second language, I would probably, even if they're not fluent in it and they're struggling with it, they're going to say every word the right way and they're going to make sure to work through it. So somebody who's coming from, a religious perspective, coming into science and learning this totally new way of, and learning the value of this new way of viewing the world, they might just be the best damn scientists in the world someday, because they're going to be very careful about what they trust and where they get their information and how well it's been rigorously tested. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Cool. And we have some more. You guys need to stop sending money. Poor Forrest. Because I feel obligated when people pay to ask questions. I feel obligated to ask the questions, but like it just doesn't.
I get you, homie.
If it doesn't stop, then I'm like, I don't want anybody to be like, I paid to ask a question, she didn't ask it, but I can't do this for her.
I need to give shorter answers.
John Austin says, predictable outcomes are the best proof of science. You rock, but I gotta plug Dr. Becky, the astrophysicist. I love me an astrophysicist. Old School Joe says, if Christians can accept giraffes, why can't they accept the LGBTQ? I agree with that. No one should accept giraffes. That's not acceptable. Shane Wilson says, congrats, Forrest, on 100. Did you get 100K subs?
On YouTube's, yeah.
Yay!
Up to 101K now.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
You and Shannon are some of my favorite voices on YouTube. Oh, thank you. That's very kind. Love seeing you together. He's all right.
Thank you.
And that's it. We finally we finally hit the end. We finally hit the end. I think I got all the questions. You did. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you so much. Just in case anybody tuned in late, can you please once again tell everybody who you are and where they can find you?
Yeah. So in case you didn't come in early, how dare you? My name is Forrest Valkai. I'm a biologist. I study evolutionary biology and bioanthropology, which I study evolution and humans and human evolution by extension. I'm real weird. And I teach science on the internet to strangers, which is a terrible decision. And you can find me on YouTube. Just look for my name, Forrest Valkai. Or if you just look for Renegade Science Teacher, which was my handle for a long time, you'll find me all over the place. I'm on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram mainly. Or if you want to make it really simple, you can go to valkailabs.com. And you can find most of my platforms there. You can find a contact box, send me an email. You can send my PO box and send me a science kit or a chocolate snack that you prefer. And all that's there. You can see everything you need to see there.
Cool. And I'm Shannon Q, and this is my channel. So if you're here, you already know who I am. And all my stuff's down in the description. So like, I never plug my stuff, but I have Patreon and like a PO box.
Oh, should I be saying that too? Yeah,
do
Patreon.
Are you a bad shill too?
$3 a month.
I'm a trash shill. I'm like, I don't know, do whatever you want.
Sometimes I remember I need money. It sucks because like I made a video about TikTok's really bad at paying creators, and I made a thing about like, hey guys, please go follow me on YouTube because like they actually pay and like give us some support, and like if you want to go to my merch store. And I have so many people that are like, fucking, I liked you when you didn't care about the money. I'm like, bro, I need to eat. I don't know what you want.
I love how people want free content like as an entitlement. Like I would totally do this for free. I love doing it. If I didn't have a single patron, I would still totally do it. But when people get indignant about it.
Yes, this is my dream job. I would do this. If you told me at 4 a.m. on a Sunday that there were some kids in New York that wanted to learn about allopatric speciation and they needed me for it, bro, I'd jump out of the fucking bed like Mario. I'd sprint up. I'd be so happy about it. But I need gas money, y'all. So like, if you go sit through the ad on my YouTube channel, please, is all I'm asking.
It's still free.
If you have money, buy a t-shirt.
No, it's still free. Just maybe watch it here in long form. If
you like my content, help me afford rent, and I will make more.
I know. Oh, it's so funny. Anyway, after all of that, I'm going to put up my end screen, and we'll stop complaining about the platforms that we exist on. I hope you all enjoyed the free content, and thank you very much.
Extra bitch session at the end is a bonus for you guys.
That's right. And as always, everybody, help elevate the discourse. Bye.
Bye.